Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 69. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope that you're all well. Happy summer holidays to all of my UK teacher friends and teaching staff who are just at the start of a very, very, very well-deserved 6 weeks holiday. And I made the schoolboy error this morning of thinking that I would have a lie-in while I recorded my pod. Did not take my own advice from last week about getting up, getting dressed as if you were going to work to get shit done, and therefore spent 3 hours pacing about in bed trying to record unsuccessfully. So I've just got up and had a shower, got dressed, and now I am ready to rock and roll. So yes, happy summer holidays to all of you guys, and if you're about to embark on 6 weeks of the Hunger Games with your kids asking you for a snack every 15 to 30 seconds, then, in the words of Katniss Everdeen, may the odds be ever in your favour. Good luck with that. We'll see you in September. Having said that, I did absolutely strike my eyes out on Friday when our year sixes left. Like, I was sobbing. I'm not joking. It was like 7 o'clock at night. I was drinking my Prosecco that was gifts off the kids and off my friends at work, and sobbing into boxes of Ferrero Rocher and milk tray. Like, I was so sad that they left, honestly. They were such a great year group. They were all lovely kids at our school, but I'm really, really going to miss them. So yeah, that was a very hard goodbye for me. And I've now woken up with like 5 different zits all over my face from the sheer amount of chocolate that I've consumed in the last 48 hours. But never mind, I'm going to go to Aldi after and get a bag of apples and try again. So I'm going to start off by reading a review from one of you lovely listeners, and this one is from someone whose name is LOA Enthusiast. And they have said, "This is one of my favourite pods on LOA. Every single episode gives me a clearer understanding of topics I already knew about, and I always get a takeaway point. Sophie is also very funny." Oh, thank you. "And down to earth with a friendly voice that makes you feel like it's one of your friends talking to you." I love that. I love when people tell me that they feel like I'm one of the friends, because when I'm recording I feel like I'm just talking to all of my friends. So thank you very much for that review. It really helps me to grow the podcast, and thank you to everybody who leaves me reviews. I'm very, very grateful for every single one of them. So I've had this topic that I'm going to talk about today on my list of pod topics for quite some time. And I thought I would share it with you today, because I found it very useful this week when I had the opportunity to go and work in a prison with some people who had committed some pretty awful offences. So this concept that I'm going to share with you helped me to have more empathy for the people that I was working with and be able to help them more. So I wanted to share it with you because I find it very interesting. From the first time that I heard about it, probably a year or so ago, it just helped me change my perspective completely about and how I interact with people that I meet, and it gave me more patience, more understanding, more empathy, like I said, with people. So I've used it to help me when I'm in a situation that might have previously angered me or pissed me off, or I couldn't understand someone's way of thinking. And I've used this egg concept that I'm going to talk about to rationalise the way that I react to things, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping that it will do the same for you. And the egg theory is a concept which a man called Andy Weir, I think it is, W-E-I-R, came up with. And apparently it only took him 20 minutes, which is fairly miraculous, because it's quite deep. And he's actually an American novelist, so he writes books, and he wrote a book called The Egg. And he's the same man that wrote a book called The Martian, and that was turned into a film with Matt Damon, which is absolutely class. I loved it. But the egg theory has become almost more of a belief than like an idea for a film. So people have begun to accept it as a way of understanding how the world works and the meaning of our existence, and it links quite heavily to some religious beliefs. Not that I'm a religious person, but you'll understand what I mean when I start talking about it. So On YouTube, there are a number of videos that have been made to explain the egg concept and kind of bring it to life a little bit. And my favourite one is by a channel called Kurzgesagt, which is a weird spelling. It's Kurzgesagt, and I'll link it in the show notes. It's probably not a weird spelling, it's just because I'm English and it's not an English word. But I'm never sure how you pronounce it, but they've got some really good videos, and one of them is about this egg theory. So I will link that in the show notes below. So the egg theory is similar to the beliefs that some religions hold about reincarnation, Hinduism in particular, but it has its own kind of twist on it. And this, to me, is a theory that makes a lot of sense and I can completely get behind it. My beliefs change all the time depending on like what I've learned or what I've experienced, and I'm totally all right with that being completely fluid. But I do resonate with this idea, and I think it's, even if it's not true, like, we'll never know that until we get there, will we? But even if it isn't, it's a great way to develop more empathy and patience with people. So in the beginning of this video, or any of the videos that are out there on this on YouTube, this particular one has got like two kind of jelly bean people. They look like a big jelly bean person and a little jelly bean person, because all the Kurzgesagt videos are like infographic ones. I really like them. I feel like they just sink in my brain. Maybe it's just me, but I do like them. So you've got this small jelly bean person and the big jelly bean person, and the small jelly bean person is kind of confused and has woken up in this complete expansive universe and doesn't recognise anything around him. And it turns out that this person was a human who has been killed in a car accident, and the big jelly bean man starts explaining to him that he has died and that he's no longer in human form, and giving him a little bit of comfort and saying there was nothing particularly significant about your death. It was just an accident that happened. Your family are all going to be fine. And kind of helping him acclimatise to this new, this new surroundings that he's in. And then he starts to show him around and sort of explain to him that everyone he has ever met is him. So he's reincarnated and reincarnated and reincarnated over and over and over again into every single form of every human that's ever walked on the earth, including all the ones from the past and all the ones from the future, which is obviously quite a overwhelming thought. And he questions it, and he's like, what, so, you know, I can go back in time? And that's another thing that he explains, is that there is no time, that it's just something that we create, and that it's more like opening the pages of a book rather than a timeline that goes in a straight line. So he explains to him that he will now reincarnate into a poor, I think it's like a poor Chinese girl, I can't remember exactly now, and she lived in something like 500 AD. So he's a little bit confused by this and a bit overwhelmed, and he starts explaining all the people that he's been before and that the people that he will become, and says that at the end of it, when he's been everybody that will ever exist on the earth, then he will almost like graduate into becoming a big jelly bean man or a god. So he asks the big jelly bean man, like, am I a god? And he said, like, not yet, but you will be at some point. At the minute, you're just developing. And part of your development is that you need to go back and live every single possible life. So he starts realising then that he's probably interacted with himself at some point. And that starts opening up this idea that we are interacting with all these people around us, and if this theory is correct, or if we choose to believe this theory, then we're actually interacting with ourselves, which makes things different, because anything that we do to another person means that we are actually doing that to ourselves. So if you're kind to someone, you're giving that kindness to yourself. If you love someone, you're giving that love to yourself. If you are unkind or mean, or you bully someone, then you're bullying yourself. You're doing all these actions to just you. And overall, the idea is that there is nobody else, it's just you, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me, but it does make sense, because I talk a lot about how in like law of assumption, we are the creators, we are the gods, we are everything that we think is creating our 3D reality. And we only have all these people in our life as we perceive them. So that does make sense to me. It is quite a big concept to imagine that the whole universe is just made for us, because I'm telling you now, but I might not even exist in it. I'm just another version of you and you're just another version of me. So it's such a mind-blowing concept to get your head around, but I really like it and it's helped me a lot, and it fits in very well with a lot of the other information that I've gathered and things that I believe. For example, like in Neville Goddard's work, he talks about having a God spark. So he talks about how when we say I am, that is the piece of God that's within us all. And I don't mean God as in a guy with a bloke in the sky. I mean this source of energy that creates. So if we are all these small jelly beans at the minute, it's not really a jelly bean. I don't really know why I'm saying a jelly bean. You know what I mean? Like a jelly baby, like a little cartoony kind of man or woman. But if we are all these small jelly bean people, then we're not a full God yet. We have things to learn, we have experiences to have, but we all have a little piece of that big jelly bean person inside us, and collectively we make up that God, that source, that energy, that universe, that whatever it is that you want to call it, that is the power that creates in our universe. So it fits in very well with a lot of the things that I already know and that I've already talked about on here and that I already believe. I think the hardest part of it is to imagine that this entire universe exists only for you. It's like a school. So every single person that you interact with, every person you meet on the street and walk past, every person that you go to a shop and get served by, every person that you love, every person that loves you, every person that you ever go on a date with or that you fall out with at the traffic lights because they've just cut you up, all of these people are actually you, including everybody that you know about from history. Who have we got? Abraham Lincoln, he's mentioned that in that video. The little jelly bean man says, what, so I'm Abraham Lincoln? And he's like, yeah, you're Abraham Lincoln. And you're also Hitler. So that's a bit of a more disturbing side of it, is that we've all got these dark and light aspects of ourselves. And at some point, we have existed as the most incredible people that have ever lived. And also the worst people that have ever lived. People like Hitler and all of the people that he killed. So it's such a strange concept, but it really does resonate with me and it makes a lot of sense. And the benefit of even taking on parts of that concept and accepting some of it, or the potential that it could be correct, is that you look at people differently. Because if you are having an argument with somebody or somebody disagrees with you, you can understand that actually that person was you or is you as well, and they've had a different set of experiences, they've had a different life, a different upbringing, a different family, a different education, and they've been conditioned with different beliefs, and therefore you're able to look at them with more compassion and more empathy, despite the fact that they might be really getting on your tits one way or another. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute, of course, that the people who have committed these terrible crimes like genocide, for example, Adolf Hitler, should be, given lots of love and compassion exactly. But if you imagine that that is the very worst of humanity, and we are humanity, each of us are humanity playing out, then we can look at it in a slightly different light, even though it might be something really quite horrendous. And as well, we've been the other side. We've been the most fantastic, amazing, kind, wonderful, caring, loving, selfless people that have ever walked the planet. And knowing that we are both of those keeps us humble. So apologies for starting off your Monday by telling you that you're Adolf Hitler, but look on the bright side, you are also Mother Teresa. So knowing that you are and have and will be every single person that will ever exist on this planet means that we've got a lot to learn yet, and that is the purpose of our life here before we evolve into the next stage of our existence. But also that we have a lot of knowledge already, because if this is not our first rodeo, if I've been, living as, I don't know, Richard Branson, I'm just looking at my vision board here, I absolutely fucking love Richard Branson. I have all of Richard Branson's knowledge, and I also have all the knowledge of Steve Irwin, how to wrestle a crocodile. I don't know why I'm picking Steve Irwin, these are just random people that are coming in my head, but it does explain why when we meditate and when we do all those practices that bring us closer to source and connect us to our higher self, why we're able to receive information from that source. So, for example, a few years ago, even though I learned a lot of things by reading books and watching videos and being interested in all of this kind of self-development stuff, I never knew more than I did when I started just sitting in silence. Because when you do things like meditation, you allow all of that collective knowledge and that collective energy and wisdom to channel through you and to come into you so that you have that to pass on to other people. And a lot of the things that I talk about on this podcast, I really don't have a fucking clue where I've got it from, other than that I've asked for it and it's been given to me. So that egg concept does kind of explain that we all have this collective knowledge to draw from, this wisdom, these experiences that we might not have had in this particular version of our life, but that we've had in past lives or that we'll have in future lives. A good example of that is when you're writing in your journal. You might find that if you're getting into journaling and you're using journal prompts, that some of the stuff that comes out is like quite profound. And I find myself reading back some of the things that I've written in my journals, like even things like prayers and stuff like that I've written. And I think, fucking hell, like, where has that come from? I'm a fucking genius. But no, pipe down, Hitler. It's collective, it's not mine. I am just drawing it from the source of everybody's collective experiences, because we are all one, we're all the same. Through this egg theory, I think we can kind of look at our mistakes, what we see as failures, things that have been setbacks, things that we do differently, as lessons, because we're in this school at the minute. And we'll get another year, just like we're at school and like our year sixes have just left and they're going to go on to the next stage because they've graduated through this bit. We will graduate in this life onto a new reincarnation where we'll be given the lessons that we need to learn next. So although we talk about that we only have one life sometimes, that we've got to make the most of it, and that I'm a big believer in that, it's only that we're going to have one life in this particular version. I do think that we will come back repeatedly until we've learned everything that we need in order for our soul and our spirit to progress on to the next level, which is becoming a giant jelly bean. How exciting. No, I don't know that, of course, for sure. This is just according to this theory. So I really like this concept. And I refer back to it a lot in my everyday life and my interactions with people. It really has had quite a profound change on the way that I deal with people who are fucking getting on my tits. I give them much more compassion and I'm more understanding. It doesn't mean that I don't set boundaries and that you shouldn't set boundaries up against people who are disturbing your peace. But it at least allows you to understand that at some point you will be that person and you will be looking at it from the other side, from the other perspective. So it brings me a little bit more peace in maybe turbulent situations or interactions with people. I also, a while ago, and I saved it, but I can't find it now, which is annoying, but I'll try and find it. And he was talking about people who've had near-death experiences. I think I might have mentioned this before, actually. But it ties in very well to this egg concept, because apparently, according to this man, who I think he'd either had a near-death experience and begun studying other people's experiences, or he was just interested in it, I can't remember now, but he had gathered some information from all of these people who had had these near-death experiences, and something that a lot of them had in common was that they explained at the end of the life, just before they were about to slip off the plate, that they experienced almost like a cinema of every interaction that they'd ever had with another human being, from being little all the way up to the final moments. And he explained it as being in like a room full of screens where he was watching every interaction that he'd had with every single person, like as in every single person, as in the postman, as in his teachers, as in his old colleagues, as in a homeless person that he'd walked past on the street. All of these people that he'd interacted with, he was able to watch the interaction again, but from the perspective of the person who was receiving it. So when he'd walked past, I'm just making this one up now because I can't remember what it was, but for example, when he'd walked past somebody who'd asked him if, for a couple of quid for something, they were homeless, for example, he had dismissed them, and he had felt that feeling of being dismissed and ignored and looked down upon. So every interaction was there for him to watch, but the feelings were from the other person's point of view, and it gave him a whole new perspective about how we are all one. And it was nothing, as far as I can remember, it was nothing to do with the egg concept. But what I think is that a lot of the teachings of these people who are passing down the wisdom of source, like people like Neville Goddard, who've done all the stuff on law of assumption, spiritual teachers, everybody who is known well for passing on this kind of information, what they say can be tied in with this egg concept. And it's quite simple, but absolutely mind-blowing. The idea that either at the end of your life or in your next life, you will be on the receiving end of your own actions and your interactions, and the way that you make people feel can help us all to make better decisions about how we behave towards people. So at some point you will be that homeless person, according to the egg concept at least, that you look the other way and ignore and make them feel small. It doesn't mean that you have to give that person money, but you could give them a smile and acknowledge that they're there, acknowledge the presence, that they are a human. Again, if you are an adult and you've got children, so if you are a teacher or you're a parent or a carer and you are shouting at a child, at some point you will be on the receiving end of that teacher shouting, because you will be the child. So it just changes everything in my mind about how we interact with people. Somebody who completely disagrees with you and has completely different views, and you're having a back and forth with and being, getting yourself in a bit of a heated discussion with, you will have the opposite opinions at some point, because you will also be that person. The opinions that you've formed about people from history, at some point you will be that person from history. And again, same in the future, you'll be all the people that come in the future according to this concept. So it's really something that encourages a lot of compassion and patience and love for each other, knowing that at some point you will experience that same interaction from the other side. So I hope that you found that bit of a kind of random topic, I suppose, a little bit deep, but I hope that you found some use in that. And I'm going to link the video, the Kurzgesagt, I can't say it, I don't know how you say it. I will link it in the show notes for you to watch, and there's other versions of it on YouTube as well. But it's definitely worth a watch, and it's there's a few different versions available. If you don't like the one that I've linked, just search for it on YouTube. So I will leave that with you, and I will speak to you next Monday, because I'll actually get up out of bed and get dressed and take my own fucking advice. Have a lovely week, and I will speak to you soon.